What up and welcome everybody. We are here for episode 5 of Pause and Predict. I'm Mushu. That's Volamel, and that's Volamel, and that's we have a newcomer here. That's KenobiCasts. What's
Hello.
up, my dude?
It's me. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to do some pausing and predicting and to get my, BGG points.
It's gonna.
I'm a mod.
No, I'm literally gonna unmod you so we can do this.
No. I want the sword instead.
Well, we
my sword.
No. You're getting your sword taken away. I was gonna make some AOT references, but they'd also be spoilies. But anyways, if y'all are here for the first time, this is Pause and Predict. This is the first time we're doing Overwatch. This is the first time we have 3 people on. So a lot of firsts today. And Pause and Predict is all about watching gaming and doing some deeper analysis, and then putting our game knowledge and our read on the game to the test, putting our money where our mouth is. No spoilies, no cheating anybody. I will find you. I will take your channel points away. Where we pause and predict the moment, look at all the information we have on the screen, and then try to make a call on what we think is actually going to happen. So Jay, I see you in chat. You're the mod sword because, and it's good because now you can't you can't bet. But yeah, well, it's Valma, how you doing, dude?
I can't complain. Just, winding down the day of just kind of chilling, vibing after a pretty busy weekend with the boys, having a bevy or two, and yeah, get the wheels spinning with some Overwatch coverage because obviously the league starts up sometime soon, a couple weeks from now. I'd guess fast hard, but yeah, it's good to get back in the swing of things.
I can't wait. I've really enjoyed. I mean, I'm very biased. I think a lot of folks I used to work with are on the Monkey Ball Global broadcast for the contenders this year, but I've been really excited by the show, and
same.
Yeah, the bit that I've seen
quite a bit.
looks fantastic. That's
they have stats. That's a big.
They have stats, and they're pulling up stuff on screen.
Twitter,
ingenuity is a downselling. It's a poor representation of actually what's going on. I think if Overwatch isn't if it doesn't have anything, we have some very passionate people. So I tweeted this earlier. I think and I said this to one of the folks who's producing the show behind the scenes. I think it's first time I felt as much hope as I do now for tier 2. I think there's a lot of things to look forward to. It's definitely beacon of light a bit. And again, very biased, and a lot of the folks who are working on the show I know quite well. Sure.
And so it's like, what is the right kind of content that should be out there, especially for not tier 1 esports? How do you make it interesting at all, right? Like, why do you go out to a AAA baseball game? Or like, it's because the tickets are cheaper. The hot dogs you can get 3 for $1 or whatever, and you get to go. You can bring the whole family. Dollar beers, whatever it happens to be. And how do you make
margarita?
Okay, I don't know about your AAA baseball experience.
We do a big here in Detroit. What can I say?
Is it BYO margaritas?
No, I have no idea.
Mushu knows that East Coast New England AAA baseball.
Pawtucket, dude.
Things are still quite expensive.
Yeah.
Expensive in AAA baseball?
Oh,
they find a way.
Jeez.
And dude, they gotta monetize. They gotta monetize, my dude.
I guess.
It's
a dying breed. Like, geez.
Less expensive than Fenway, but more expensive than like any other situation you'd be buying that kind of food. But anyways, I digress. We have a very cool match today. This is one that was just played today. This is Shoes Money Crew versus Young and Beautiful. And actually, we're gonna go ahead and we can back it up a little bit here because I believe they have roster screens, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. I don't have a single clue on either of these teams.
So Yab is a team comprised. So Yab is basically like Overwatch League talent.
Okay.
Or ex Overwatch League talent. So you got Boombox Cruz, Ben Best and Nico, Naru and Saika. I don't know as much about. But like looking at this roster on paper, it seems pretty okay. Champ.
Yep. And then we have Shoes Money Crew. Believe the underdogs. I think it's very fair to say. Let me know in chat. Yes, Saika is cracked. I've definitely seen Saika. Right? Is this Saika like Saika or Sika like Sycamore? Like he's sick. They're sick.
True. Good.
Wait, hold on.
It's a good question.
Where's my SMC?
Sycamore.
There we go. There we go. Look at that. Look at that flying. Oh, a little animation there. Sycamore. So
Danid on Doom.
So this was a very interesting thing too, right? Where this is like, wait, Danid on British Hurricane didn't get pulled up to the main roster? Question marks. I don't know exactly what happened. So I think definitely chip on the shoulder. But yeah, anything else to highlight here, fellas?
I think
these
Alex
are all new players to me.
From what I remember for Alex, he's very, very gifted at Sigma. He was on Sheer Cold last year.
Okay.
I don't know about the rest of his hero pool because I feel like Sigma's just been the fucking meta for like a year. So I'm interested to see how Alex plays when it's something that's not Sigma, because again, I think that we're at a point now where Sigma's not really as prevalent as he was before because of all the literally all the nerfs that like they put the nerf bet on him really hard for a lot of the time. So I would expect probably Zarya or Diva, which I'm not as familiar with for Alex.
All right. But even so, I mean, this whole exercise, and why, you know, it's totally fine if people didn't do prep going into this for many reasons, but this is what I want to make sure that we're showcasing here is saying the things you're looking for, noting things, and for us to have discussion that could give insight to people, especially if they're starting out, and saying, and being able to dive into deeper topics and explore more nuances. I did more of a write-up today about why pause and predict as a format is something that I've had a lot of fun with, and I think we've been taking it through the iterations, and I talk about the Volamel about it each time after we're done with the show. Be like, all right, how did this feel? How did that feel about it? But what has stayed tried and true is just every time I talk with a caster, or you know, anyone who's thinking about getting to the scene from an analytical perspective, or just being on the show, game knowledge. It's one thing to be a student of the game from the sense of like, oh, I'm going to memorize the ability names. Tracer's, you know, has Pulse Bomb for her ultimate. You know, Doomfist has the, I don't even know what the slam is, what it was called, right? Like you can yeah, there you go. See, you have the memorization.
He's
there
professional, you know.
Like you can memorize all that stuff. You can learn all the cooldown timings. You can learn even the interactions, what works well. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter unless you have a deep understanding and knowing how players are applying all of those things to gain an advantage. What is going to be the dominant, and that's how metas happen, right? Is that there are these strategies that teams employ, or individuals, if it's a 1v1 game, individuals or teams employ to win. And so as a caster, as an analyst, whatever you happen to be doing, to add value to that, you need to do it, but more than just say what your eyeballs are already seeing.
Exactly. And I think, and maybe this is more of even a question, is like, at least the floor should be you speaking critically, where you know, we both come in with like very, you know, all three of us come in with some very, you know, cursory understanding of like maybe half the players in this match. But this is a great example of, you know, coming in, I don't know anything about these teams. I know the game for the most part, you know, at a you know, basic level, but can you look at a game and kind of strip yourself away from that? You know, I don't know the history of these players. I don't know their style, but can I think critically about this thing? That's, I feel like, the floor of what
exactly
kind of happens or goes wrong a lot of the time.
Yeah, and if you're a new caster, right, like hopefully you can learn some stuff about like, and just hearing how we're talking about the game and what we're looking at. And you're seeing a lot of learning happen on the stream. By the end of it, every other time with Volamel, I'm like, you know what? I feel like I could probably
have a
talk
way better
about
understanding.
This team. Be like, this is something this is something super interesting about this team and whatnot. So hopefully we'll drive to the same thing. Anyways, let's go ahead
we will.
and jump into it. Shoes Money Crew versus YAB.
Yep.
Young and beautiful. We'll get a little.
What about the old and ugly, you know? What about us?
Ow.
What about the old and uglies?
We're left behind, okay?
I guess. Not everybody could be young and beautiful.
Dude, they're already doing predictions. Like we're already
It's like we're built in, you know.
Let's jump on into it. Yeah, we got Monkey Bubble director Bubasaurus in the chat. Oh my god. We have mod chat going on right now, by the way. Okay, so anyways, we have
I don't have mine.
All right, so Kenobi, yeah, you've been stripped of it because we're gonna do some predictions. You can't predict if you're an inside trader, I guess.
True.
I mean, doesn't stop a lot of people.
Hey, what can I say? We'll keep it to 1080p here. Having some instability. What's going on here? Cool. As we're jumping into this, let's go ahead and maybe we'll take. I'm not gonna call a prediction.
Do you want to go over compositional, like?
Yeah. Do we want to?
Yeah, sure.
Go over
just the basics.
Yeah.
So this is Rush, right, Kenobi?
Yeah, it's Rush. Rush is very heavily cooldown reliant, and
True.
fights are going to last an extremely long time. In this specific iteration of Rush, there are things that are probably more important than like anything else, which to me, at least at the start, I think is Maywall and BAP Lamp are the two things that I think are probably the most important cooldowns, because I'd say 9 times out of 10, the team that is forced to use BAP Lamp early ends up losing, because you've just lost so much. You've lost your ability to brawl because you are losing a lot of HP that is technically not on the screen. I don't know the word for it. There's like a word for
effective
HP. There we go. Yeah. You lose a lot of effective HP, and then if you're using your BAP ult first, that means you let BAP Lamp first. You don't have it for the incoming fight, which the other team is going to do. Then the other team can play like a lot more aggressive onto you. The only way that would ever change is that if you have somehow managed to farm your Ant Matrix beforehand, that's the only way that you can really match the output of incoming damage. So Maywall is kind of used as a way to force out BAP Lamp, because realistically your best case scenario is that you section off the Reinhardt, and then you try and flashbang above the Reinhardt shield, and try and just get the kill that way. D.Va I think is here specifically because it's easier to keep your Reinhardt safe with DM over a Maywall, except it's something like a Zarya, where Zarya you would have to damage the wall, whereas D.Va has the mobility to just go over it and use DM.
Agreed. I think the other option obviously is Zarya, but she's one of those heroes that accelerates over time and kind of scales. It's probably one of the only off the top of my head that I can think of heroes in Overwatch that actually scale with time spent in a fight or in the match. But on top of that, just things that I'm already starting to latch onto, looking at some of these compositions and taking some of the astute breakdown that Kenobi's kind of pinpointed with in terms of the abilities, is how actually these abilities are being used, how proactive, what's the tempo of these certain teams. Are they ice walling second into the fight? Are they trying to push the tempo of the game? I don't suspect these divas to play any kind of wing angles, but that was something that we saw as a growth from the GOATs meta, is we saw divas trying to play and pressure flanks to be able to bait out some of these more important cooldowns. And on top of that, to add to Kenobi's point, I think another thing to really kind of keep your eye on is how these Lucios are playing. Where are their amp it ups kind of being used? Are they necessarily just speeding in every fight? Where are they taking their engagements? That's going to be another very important ability, because there's a world where you could kind of play a little slower. You look at an NYXL in the GOATs meta, very often playing for the second wall, playing for the second engagement, trying to punish those reactions to the fights, not trying to be proactive. Now that doesn't matter if neither of these teams do that, but it's already trying to get it into the thought, right? Getting into the thinking about those things ahead of time to go, okay, we didn't see that, so who's actually being a little bit more proactive? Who's battling where exactly? Like, where on the map are they finding their fights? How successful are these abilities necessarily falling into place? Maybe where are these abilities kind of falling off? Where are they not necessarily finding the value, or maybe they're wasting them in some way, to Kenobi's point.
All right, so there's a lot that was just said, but I think what's it might be intimidating for some folks. Actually, there's a comment in chat. Banjo said, Banjo Life said, the way the packing kind of described it is taking turns at Maywall. So obviously May is a big focus here, and cooldowns. So let's go and check it out. This is the standard. This is standard Rush, right?
Yeah, it feels standard Rush right now.
This feels like the go-to for a lot of teams. I think there are maps and points and game modes that you can
NA especially. I think this is very much an NA thing.
I would guess that Asia is a little different. I won't say
based on what I've seen for Chinese contenders, it's much more and I think for Korea as well, I think it's a lot more of the double bubble style. They do play Rush on a couple of maps, but I think like Sombra,
but there's more
double bubble.
So like
which is Winston Zarya.
Right. Okay.
Is double bubble is what that's kind of been coined right now.
Gotcha.
And I think the reason that you're not seeing Zarya here, just to kind of piggyback off of Volamel's point, is that I think D.Va's here for shield break more so than anything else. And obviously DM is like very good, and the mobility you have with D.Va is very good. But the reason I think some teams prefer the D.Va over the Zarya is that comfort, I think, is a big deal, and also the fact that you get shield break, just permanent shield break with D.Va, and if you can win the battle of shield break at the start, and that means you have to kind of like creates a domino effect where your Reinhardt has to be, you have to use bubble on it, you have to use your amp matrix or not amp matrix, your immortality field, and when you're being forced by the other team to do things you don't necessarily want to do, you've kind of already lost in just the neutral game.
Agreed. And to only kind of reiterate that and why D.Va is so important, you might kind of ask yourself like, well, Zarya at full charge does a whole lot of damage. That's the important thing. You actually have to get to full charge, which takes a lot of time, especially in that neutral game. So in this composition, Zarya, at least to me, feels like more of a win more champion, where if you win that neutral fight, if you win this, very important first fight, yes, you're going to come into that second fight very, very, strong and arguably better in terms of shield break than the D.Va. However, the D.Va's more flexible. You get all that damage baseline. You get the ability to kind of eat flashbangs, eat fire strikes, eat snowballs,
blizzard,
so many different things, right? Just a versatile pick. Can be mobile. You can flank if you so chose to. I don't expect it, but I think that's probably a natural growth or path forward for this composition as teams refine it down, as maybe flanking a little bit with the McCree, maybe poking a little bit more with the D.Va, not necessarily playing just 6-man forward march, just blitzkrieg style wall. Okay, we walled, we didn't get anything. Okay, now you wall. Like it's very like almost Civil War, like line warfare-esque.
Raise bayonets,
just pretty much just volley. Okay, your turn. Gentleman's agreement. I think it's going to get much more scrappy in the future. If I had to guess, I spill whiskey everywhere.
Let's see. Is it? Can you spill some my way? I could use.
I'll just.
All right, well, let's get into it.
Middle here, and this is a great way to kick off this series.
I'm just do. I'll kill some music too.
So the other thing D.Va does here is high ground control. That's just another thing that because you
look
don't
at
get
that.
This
They're on the high ground, Kenobi. Did you plan that?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't know what happens. I guess they just both just.
Gab's D.Va got. I mean,
they both just like they both just killed themselves on the high ground.
Oh boy.
I feel like in terms of just like the way that Oasis City Center works is if you aren't the first to control high ground, you have to just give it up and split the map. It's almost like in League of Legends where you like agree to vertically jungle.
I see.
Where it's like, okay, you invaded, cool. I'll just stand over here. We'll wait till the point opens. You have to come to me because you're not contesting the point. So you're either going to send somebody down to actually contest me, and then I can engage.
Yep.
Or I'm going to take first point. I'm going to start gaining progress, and then you're going to have to come get me. Right.
Yeah. There are also certain breakpoints with this composition where it's like you saw their solar kills Psycha extremely early. Once that McCree dies, you essentially know as the offensive team that you have the ability to have flashbang utility over the enemy team, and then you can just basically play forward a lot more aggressively because you can play with the threat of flashbang, having to like kind of play mind games with the D.Va. Are they going to defense matrix or not?
Agreed.
Things like that I think are McCree is like the one character in this composition that I think you can have pop-off moments with, just like from the neutral fight. Like there's just, if you don't sit behind a shield correctly and then McCree just like 2-taps you, the fight just kind of ends.
That's another stylistic thing that I would imagine we'll see as this metagame progresses. Much like we saw in week 1 of 2020 in the Overwatch League, some teams maybe even bringing in Outlaw Florida Mayhem, bringing in a Brigitte to kind of help accentuate a flanking McCree style almost, or to better facilitate that in the future. Not something that we're seeing in these first 2 fights, but
you mean it's like a bodyguard kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Trying to bodyguard this McCree to at least open up the possibility to be able to play these wing and kind of like side ankles a little bit more, to be able to pressure out those those vastly important abilities like Kenobi mentioned at the start of the show. And we're already we saw Daned kind of flexing onto the Doom just to kind of get
that's
back
just
into
a
the fight.
Daned special. him going to that.
I do wonder if we'll get some more of that though. As like you're saying, it is a special, you know, pocket pick for him, but
yeah,
I'd have to imagine that maybe we'll see a little bit more of that as Shoes Money Crew. That being said,
this is a pretty long rotation from Shoes. I mean, this is a good wall to start things off. So I think that the other thing that D.Va brings to the table against a composition like this is when you are aggressing, D.Va's very good at anti-aggression because you just can throw bomb a lot of the time. Where it's like you can't really walk forward and play. You can't really play as aggressively, executably as you would want. That's not a word, but whatever. You can't really play the way you want to play if there's a D.Va bomb behind you because the Ryan is the only thing that can really shield.
Right.
And you have to kind of back around geometry, so you can't just rush onto the enemy team if there's a D.Va bomb.
Agreed. It definitely is one of those things that kind of like mentally taxes you, or at least forces you to think about where you're taking your engagements with that like already on the field. And funnily enough, we actually get to see big flank from the Yab D.Va. Very, very interesting from Naru to be able to kind of flank in there. Again, I don't think it's as, you know, prominent as Goats, but it's tough to exactly see why. Can we actually back up and see that fight? That D.Va flank.
Let's do it.
Just a little bit slower. That's a really interesting one. Let's look at the pre-fight and then kind of not pausing, not necessarily pausing and predicting, but like getting a very 75%
clean speed here.
Game state of things.
So Shoes rotates.
Shoes is pretty dry. Yab has gate or window or whatever you want to call it. Big flank from the D.Va.
So they split.
Wall comes up.
Yeah, the walls are always just trying to split the team in half, huh?
They get first pick and they have wall used, but they somehow lose this fight. They get shattered.
Yeah, they get shattered.
Okay. All right. Interesting. That's what's really dangerous about this kind of meta game is that Ryan can just sneak up on you. Like they came into that fight. Hades didn't have a ton of ult charge, but one meaty fire strike, one cleavy swing, right? That Earthshatter's coming online real quick, and it might be faster than you expect. And you might be out of position, and you might be caught, and you might be dead. I do not envy teams in trying to track that all.
The other thing that I've noticed is also like Deadeye is just used kind of as a zoning tool now, a lot. Like here, I don't think you're expecting. I mean, getting kills here is with Deadeye. I think is just like gravy. I don't really think you're
not expected, right? It's a added benefit if you can get it, but you're not trying to force it.
I am very interested in terms of like the number breakdown when it comes to like amplification matrix into Deadeye, into like how threatening that is for enemy Reinhardt shields. Where if it's actually like very dangerous to kind of like rotate into them, I wouldn't be surprised if a team used that like looking into their spawn, like kind of where Yab's position now, amping, dead-eyeing, and then just like waiting for the Ryan to come get you and just buying a lot of time with two ults. Ooh, big sim swap. Right. I didn't even see that.
They couldn't get there.
They had to try and get to.
It was a cute swap. I that's a great presence of mind. I think that's a good mark for Shoes Money Crew to be able to kind of make that call on the fly and just go for it.
So I think you guys are particularly seeing here, like with the, because I think what's interesting is that you can theory craft all day, right? And
sure,
but at the end of the day, like, notice anything from initially here?
It's not as tight as I would expect, and that's not to say it's uncoordinated, but they are playing a lot more angles. Like the McCrees are a lot more interested in kind of flanking. The Ryans are a little bit more aggressive than I would like. Well, not that I would like, but just like very like going for picks themselves. Obviously the D.Va's kind of, it's a lot looser than I would have expected. I would have kind of guessed this was going to be like a 6-on-6, like just meatball it down and run into each other, but it's a lot more spread apart. There's a little bit more skirmish to this than I would have gathered.
So Shoes Money Crew
coming in on
so this is, you're kind of, I don't know if you're necessarily forced to play Zarya here. I think you kind of have to if you're going to play Doomfist, because I think Doomfist does need some sort of pocket if he's gonna be going in alone because he doesn't have like anything like Zenyatta Orb or
like there he has the Orb on the way out.
Yeah, so like
shield on the way out.
You really need Zarya if you're gonna play Doomfist, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Agreed. You just get pop. You need some sort of protection from him, and I don't think defensive or defense matrix, whatever the hell the ability's called. I don't think Divas be able to blanket him as
well, I mean, it's also
as
harder.
Zarya
Like
bubble.
Zarya bubble is just easy to execute. Like you just throw it.
Press
on
and click.
Yeah.
Play and forget type of deal.
Reportedly,
like
Danid calls it
in
Int
League.
Doom style. Can neither confirm, but that's what we've been told in chat.
I call it T1W, style, but that's just me. Shout out to real.
They want to season the Chinese contenders with that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Stats.
I saw this. I don't know if it was this match or just something from the EU contender stream earlier where I was just like, oh, I wonder. I was very close to making a tweet where it's just like, if this is the meta, I wonder if like Valiant actually could be good if they signed Doomfist. That's whose name rhymed with Mija. Yeah, exactly. This would be very interesting.
Is it playing how you'd expect though, with like with the Doomfist here? Because they've been dominating so far.
I would kind of expect them to play a little bit more for the high ground, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think the only reason why he didn't hear is because he has his ult. But outside of that, it's very like cut and dry. It's very short, stubby engages when you have the defensive or not defense.
That's
oh my god.
Ooh.
I think one of the things that Doomfist also does is Joe's talking about like kind of the mental RAM is like Doomfist is a very difficult, I think, champion to play against. If you like, you have to basically kind of be looking out from every other angle. It's like, okay, where's the Doomfist coming on? We have to, be able to get some cooldowns to take out the Doomfist. We're not allowed to just let them run roughshod over us. So I think in a situation like this where you have a McCree, the McCree has to like be very, very careful about usage of flashbang, and you also have to be very careful about using Immortality Field because Doomfist can uppercut you out of it.
I think that
correctly.
Exactly. I think that becomes like if in a perfect world where Shoes plays it perfectly, and I don't think they necessarily played it like the best of their capability. I think I saw a couple late bubbles, but it's really difficult to punish like a bubble Doomfist jumping in. However, if that first engagement, if that first set of rotation, like that first rotation of abilities doesn't necessarily net a ton of value, it's up to the opposing team. That's your window to actually get in and punish them. So it's about surviving that first thing. But it's really hard, and that's where the ability, like that mental RAM, comes into place. It's not necessarily like how to deal with it or like, oh my god, like we have to scout out where the doom's coming from. It's about having that shift in gear to saying, okay, this is how we were using our abilities in the first submap, and this is how we actually have to use it against this Doomfist composition. I think Lamp's a lot more expendable. You have to be able to use that to kind of save somebody if they get picked out by that Doomfist, because you cannot afford that first pick rotation. If you can survive that first rotation, then you're golden. But up until that point, it's tough. Not to mention, like when you uppercut somebody, if you're slamming in and uppercutting somebody, think about where that target's positioning is. It's above the Ryan shield. It's out of the defense matrix, right? It's out of the way of any kind of healing. You're up in the air. The Baptiste can't heal you there.
Out of lamp. Yeah.
And I think that's what happened on this first engagement here, where the Shoes Money Crew McCree is able to kind of get a pick off of the uppercut. So just the
serving him up on a platter.
Yeah, basically, trainer, like just
right? Yeah.
And I mean,
just the boop in the air is enough to be able to get a pick, and it's not necessarily off of the Doomfist's damage, but it's the mispositioning or the you know what I'm talking about. I can't think of the word, but
yeah, I mean, we expect
comps like this. Comps like this really hate any type of disruption. Like that's really like that's why Maywall is so important. That's why because you're usually just disrupting. You're kind of just like a giant ball of thread, and you don't want to have those like individual threads pulled apart, because then you become essentially weaker. So what Doomfist does is he basically is just pulling those threads apart, like Joe was saying, where it's like uppercut, slam down, punch, like all of these just like kind of move you away from your main goal, which is just to death ball into people.
Yep. And it's not a composition that you can just run. Anybody can run. I think you need a very excellent Doomfist, which Danid obviously is. It's one of those things that is going to kind of, I would imagine, either win them this season or be one of the reasons why they're so deep into playoffs when it comes to that point. It's very potent. It's something that not a lot of people can find good practice against. Like how many teams and contenders for these teams can play against such a good Doomfist, let alone a team that facilitates that Doomfist so good. So it's kind of a Chengdu Hunters-esque idea.
Yeah. You could even see there too, right? The Sika had to turn around with his Deadeye because Danon was punching him. You lose all that value. Yeah, no, it's just a reload though, anyways.
True, exactly.
Big shatter.
Whew, the shatters have been just absolutely massive.
Yeah,
both of these Rhines are not backing down when it comes to like the footsies of Rhine duels. They're swinging till the fucking the cows come home. It's very aggressive.
Choose many crew on Mirror, lose. Choose many crew on Doom, win.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It is like, to be fair, like Stinny Setter is really tough to be able to.
Yeah, you can't play it. Like
it's
Doom is also very map
impossible.
dependent, which like I mean, Doom is like a very much as a hero. You are either going to really perform because the map geometry favors you. Like I think this is King's Row.
Yep.
I think Doom very good on King's Row.
You had all that practice from
map
Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say dumb joke.
Legit word. I think that when you go to like maps like Gibraltar and stuff, like Doom just can't be like it's very. I mean, you can play it. It's just not as like good as like something.
It's so hard to facilitate.
Yeah,
because you want to be able to engage with your E, right? Like that's something that I feel like I learned from Chinese contenders, especially from T1W, is if you can actually, if there's high ground that you feel like you can contest, like that E becomes so much more versatile. It isn't just like a gap closer, but the range on it becomes so much more effective when you actually can fight from the high ground. And that's not something that you can guarantee on City Center. That's not something that you can promise your Doomfist that you're going to be able to get, is that high ground control. So if you have to split the map and play on the opposite side for that first like 15 seconds or so, that Doomfist is not feeling great, on top of having to pick Zarya in the neutral fight.